Part 6. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 51. Hikaru Kurosawa's physical fitness is so strong that he can run very fast even if he is carrying someone on his back. Finally, after running for a while, the nurse was finally thrown away. As he stopped, Kurosawa let out a long sigh of relief. "Is it heavy?" Ninomiya Chizuru lay on his back and couldn't help but ask when she saw him panting. "You're so light, how can I say it's heavy? You just managed to get rid of the nurse." Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head and explained. In fact, he was quite frightened just now. If he were alone, he felt like he would have bolted. "Thank you, it would be over if you didn't carry me." Ninomiya Chi he secretly breathed a sigh of relief and felt happy. Thanks to Kurosawa Hikaru, otherwise, she would have sprained her foot in that situation and really didn't know what to do. "It's a trivial matter." Kurosawa Hikaru was thanked and felt a little embarrassed. It feels very comfortable to carry her, like a soft ball lying on the body, and it is also accompanied by a heart-warming touch and a refreshing and very pleasant fragrance. "My ankle is sprained. I can't walk around slowly. Why don't we go out first?" Ninomiya Chizuru suggested after thinking about it. She had been giving up before, but now that her ankle was sprained, it gave her a reason to go out. "Before that, let me help you deal with it first." Kurosawa nodded and said. What to deal with? Ninomiya Chizuru was a little confused. In response, Kurosawa just slowly lowered her down and let her stand on one foot against the wall. "Excuse me." Immediately, he bent down and squatted down. After giving a warning, he reached out and held her left ankle. Seeing his actions, Ninomiya Chizuru subconsciously stretched out her hand to hold down the hem of her skirt to avoid being exposed. "I have learned some things and know how to deal with a sprained foot. If you don't deal with it urgently, it may swell after a long time." Holding her delicately concave, round, and smooth ankles, Kurosawa started to knead them gently. Because he was introduced to parkour, he not only learned various parkour postures, unloading techniques, fixed-point jumping, but also emergency treatment after injury. An ankle sprain can be a big or small matter, but if it is not dealt with, there will still be some trouble. "Thank you." Ninomiya Chizuru's left foot was supported by him with one hand, and he pressed the ankle with the other hand. He gently kneaded it with his warm fingers. It felt quite comfortable, but a little embarrassing. Although Neon women have no idea that their feet cannot be touched. But she rarely interacted with the opposite sex. Even if she did, it was only verbal communication and no such physical contact at all. Kurosawa didn't say anything, just pinched her feet. Because he was wearing high heels, he couldn't see much, but what he could feel was that the smooth and delicate skin felt great. "Just take it easy for a while and you should get better." Not long after, Kurosawa Hikaru withdrew his hand and stood up. "What will happen if we don't deal with it?" Ninomiya Chizuru asked a very low-level question, but she had nothing to do, just to relieve the embarrassment. "Have you never sprained your foot before?" "Waguo, but I always apply ice." "If you don't treat it at all, it will cause swelling, make walking painful, and take longer to recover. It's not a big problem." "Do you need to apply ice after leaving the haunted house?" "No, by the time you get out of the haunted house, you should be almost fine. But if you want to fully recover, it's best not to wear high heels tomorrow." "What should we do next?" "Can you carry me on your back for a while?" Ninomiya Chizuru looked around and asked. Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised. He originally wanted to help her walk out, but he didn't expect that she would offer to let him carry it. "If you help me walk, I won't be able to run if I encounter such a scary ghost again." Ninomiya Chizuru was a little embarrassed by his surprised look and explained. "My pleasure." Kurosawa Hikaru smiled, then turned his back to her and squatted down. Seeing this action, Ninomiya Chizuru hesitated for 2 seconds and then lay down. As Kurosawa Hikaru's hands held up her plump and soft thighs, the two people became one again. Do you want to run out quickly? Kurosawa's palms held her plump, soft, and elastic thighs, and he felt her presence on his back, which made his heart beat faster. Let's go first. If you are in danger, run away. Ninomiya Chizuru thought for a while and felt that she was too tired to run out, so she said. In fact, she has a little selfishness. Because Kurosawa Hikaru is carrying her, she is not so scared, and maybe she can fully experience this haunted house trip. Then let's go. Kurosawa Hikaru agreed with this choice. It's a rare occasion, and it would be a pity to run out in a hurry. What's more, carrying a beautiful woman to a haunted house is quite an experience. In this way, the two of them set off again, and their traveling speed increased a lot. After all, they no longer had to be dragged. Along the way, their moods changed and they were no longer so scared. For Chizuru Ninomiya, this experience was even more wonderful. Because she felt at ease, she even had the heart to look around. If you feel scared, just look away, or hide your head on Kurosawa's shoulder. Kurosawa felt very satisfied with her reaction of curiosity and fear. Whether it's her screaming from time to time, or her burying her head on her shoulder, her long, fragrant hair falling down. In this scary and eerie haunted house, two people walk together, which is tense and exciting at the same time, but also exciting and reassuring. For more than half an hour, Kurosawa Hikaru took her to various places. I see the exit. Finally, along with a ray of light in front of him and the big words entrance written on the wall, Kurosawa Hikaru said. Ninomiya Chizuru didn't speak, she just hugged his neck, buried her head on his shoulder, and smelled his delicious fragrance. During the final journey, Kurosawa Hikaru slowed down and walked very slowly. Put me down. When they were about to reach the exit, Ninomiya Chizuru spoke up. Although Kurosawa Hikaru was a little reluctant to leave, he still cooperated and put her down. You are not allowed to tell others what happened today. Keeping her feet on the ground, Ninomiya Chizuru adjusted her glasses, then straightened her somewhat messy hair and clothes, and said. Her panicked look disappeared, replaced by calmness and composure, as if she had turned back into teacher Ninomiya. Certainly. Kurosawa Hikaru smiled when he saw her change. He was not such a dishonest man who would show off his date to everyone. You can't tell anyone else in this life, Ninomiya Chizuru warned again. I won't tell you in my next life. Let's go. Ninomiya Chizuru stepped on the spot a few times and found that her left foot was no longer so painful. Although she could feel it vaguely, walking was not a problem. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't need to tidy up anything, but he felt that there was still warmth on his back and he was in a happy mood. Sure enough, if you are going on a date at an amusement park with someone of the opposite sex, you must not miss the haunted house. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 52. Walking out of the other side of Jiji General Hospital, Ninomiya Chizuru saw the person squatting at the foot of the wall next to him. The man was squatting with his knees in his arms, his head buried between his legs, and his appearance was invisible. Runa? Where did you go just now? Ninomiya Chizuru glanced at her and felt surprised. Chizuru, Kurosawa, this haunted house is too scary. Hearing these words, Igarashi Runa raised his head, and when he saw an acquaintance, he immediately wailed. Her face was very pale, and her body was still trembling. The tears in the corners of her eyes fell straight down like broken pearl necklaces. There were two clearly visible black tear marks on her face. They were the makeup stains left after the eye makeup was wet with tears. It was obvious that she was frightened and even burst into tears. She looked miserable and distressed. Okay, stop crying. Aren't you afraid of ghosts? Seeing her miserable state, Ninomiya Chizuru hurriedly walked over to comfort her. No matter how scared you are, You can't stand up to someone. The two of you disappeared while walking. I was chased by those ghosts. It was so scary. This comfort was of no use to Igarashi Runa. God knows what she went through when she was alone in the haunted house. The feeling of being abandoned by the whole world and being left alone, the feeling that every dark corner and every place is full of malice is so terrifying. Sorry. Kurosawa Hikaru, who was standing behind, saw her miserable condition, and his originally happy mood turned from sunny to cloudy. During the trip to the haunted house just now, because he felt that Ms. Runa was not afraid of ghosts, he was not worried at all. But now he knows how much Miss Runa sacrificed in order to help the two of them and create opportunities to be alone together. Miss Runa, I will repay you well when I have the opportunity. Kurosawa Hikaru clenched his fist and recorded this kindness and assist in his heart. I'm sorry, I accidentally sprained my ankle just now, so I couldn't follow you. Ninomiya Chizuru saw her being frightened like this and hurriedly comforted her. Sprained your foot? Are you okay? Hearing this, Igarashi Runa looked at her feet while sobbing. It's okay, Kurosawa helped me take care of it. Ninomiya Chizuru noticed her gaze, shook her left foot and signaled. Ah, I was scared alone, but you two helped each other, it was so sweet. You have to compensate me, I want to have a feast. Seeing her reaction that didn't look like she was frightened, Igarashi Runa felt that she had suffered a big loss and said immediately. Okay, let's go have a big dinner. You can eat whatever you want. Seeing her losing her temper, Ninomiya Chizuru hurriedly comforted her. She could imagine how scary it would be to be alone in this haunted house. If they hadn't walked too slowly, Runa wouldn't have ended up like this. After crying like this for a while, Igarashi Runa finally calmed down. Let's go eat something first and then go home. Igarashi Runa stood up, wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes with a tissue, and said. You go to the bathroom to wash up first, makeup is gone. Ninomiya Chizuru nodded and also reminded. I want to sleep with you tonight, otherwise I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep. Igarashi Runa said without paying much attention to the flowers. Anyway, there was only one member of the opposite sex present, probably her best friend's future boyfriend, so she didn't care about her image at all. Sure. When Ninomiya Chizuru heard this suggestion, she couldn't help but wish for it. Although this trip to the haunted house was not that scary because Kurosawa Hikaru was on his back, if you were alone in the dead of night, you might feel scared in retrospect. It was still very bright at this time, even though it was dusk, but the summer days are very long. After leaving the haunted house, the two women found the women's room and entered. Kurosawa Hikaru also entered the men's restroom. After running the water, he walked out of the restroom and stood against the wall outside to wait. It was only now that he had some free time and was able to distract himself from the rewards, which were getting started with piano and painting skills. The biggest difference between permanent rewards and experience card rewards lies in the mastery of knowledge. 10 minutes later, they went to the children's playground again, picked up all the dolls knocked down from the shooting booth, and walked out of Fuji-Q Highland. It was dusk, and many tourists were leaving. Everyone had a different experience, but they all had a smile on their face. An amusement park is such a place that makes people laugh and relax. Is it over? After walking out of the amusement park, Ninomiya Chizuru looked back at the sign on the door, feeling a little empty and reluctant. When she walked in this morning, she didn't feel much, but after playing for a day, she suddenly found that the amusement park was much more interesting than she expected. Chizuru, does your foot hurt? Why don't you leave? At this moment, Igarashi Runa shouted. Here we come. Ninomiya Chizuru raised her head, looked at Kurosawa Hikaru and Runa a few meters away in front of them, and responded with a shout and followed them. Soon, they were back in the car. This time, needless to say, Ninomiya Chizuru sat in the back with Kurosawa Hikaru. Where are we going? Ninomiya Chizuru asked after pulling up her seat belt. I've found a restaurant, so be prepared to bleed your wallet. Igarashi Runa hummed as she spoke, as if she was still holding a grudge. No problem. Ninomiya Chizuru didn't mind spending money. She didn't spend much money on weekdays, and what's more, she really wanted to compensate and reward Runa. Not only did he take time out to accompany her to the amusement park, but he also served as a driver and had to drive such a long way back and forth. It was close to 6 o'clock, and this was the peak time, no matter which city it was. It was not until 6:30 that they arrived at their destination. Western Restaurant. Ninomiya Chizuru got off the car and saw the nearest restaurant. The style was quite elegant and the decoration was very Western. She was a little surprised. I want to have a big meal. Igarashi Runa got off the car and said. Let's go. Ninomiya Chizuru was just surprised, but didn't refuse. She glanced at Runa and then at Kurosawa Hikaru, and said. She was in a good mood, with a faint smile on the corner of her mouth. How many people are there? Do you have a reservation? As soon as they entered the Western restaurant, a waiter in a suit and shirt came forward. 3 people, no reservation. Ninomiya Chizuru replied. Please follow me. This Western restaurant is quite high-end and the consumption is relatively high, so even at mealtime, there are still tables. Soon, under the guidance of the waiter, they sat down. Kurosawa, why haven't you been talking since just now? Ninomiya Chizuru asked as they sat down. I was just thinking, I had a lot of fun today. Kurosawa was just learning the introductory knowledge of piano. When he heard this, he came back to his senses and smiled. Indeed, Ninomiya Chizuru also agreed. Except that I was scared to death at the end. Today was still quite interesting. Igarashi Runa muttered while holding the menu. We didn't leave you on purpose, stop complaining. Seeing that she was still full of resentment, Ninomiya Chizuru said helplessly. No complaints. As they talked, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't say anything, just glanced at the piano not far away. He had chosen this Western restaurant yesterday after searching online, and he told Miss Runa about it when he walked out of the amusement park. Maybe the amusement park trip is over and the date mission is completed, but before we get home, today's date is not over. I will update early today because I have to take my wife back to her parents' home to visit relatives. In addition, I ask for monthly tickets, recommendation tickets, follow-up reading, and collections. Thank you all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 53. The way to eat in Western restaurants is not the same, but depends on various types of Western food. For example, French and Western food have strict requirements for various cuisines. However, Kurosawa Hikaru and the others didn't know much about this aspect. They just took the menu and clicked on whatever names they were interested in. In the seat, he was alone on one side, while Chizuru Ninomiya and Runa Igarashi were on the opposite side. Brother Guang, I'm done. After placing the order, Kurosawa Hikaru noticed that his phone was vibrating. He took it out and took a look. It was a message from Yuki-chan. It's so late, have you had dinner? Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised and replied. Not yet. I'm on the subway, ready to go home to eat. What about you? I'm eating with the teacher. You have a really good relationship with your teacher. Fortunately, I'll contact you when I get back. Kurosawa Hikaru took a second look, unsure of the tone and inner thoughts of the sentence, so he just thought about it and replied. As he pressed his cell phone, the 2 people opposite him didn't know what he was doing, but they didn't ask any more questions. At this moment, in front of the grand piano not far away, a man in a formal dress lowered his hands and began to play piano music. As his fingers fell lightly, the quiet and soft sound of the piano resounded. City in the Sky. Just the prelude. Ninomiya Chizuru recognized the track and couldn't help but take a few more glances. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't look back, just looked at her, and found that her eyes and sight were involuntarily attracted to her. Her profile is beautiful, with one hand gently holding her face. On her delicate face, the rimless glasses are very light, and the beautiful eyes behind the lenses are staring. Obviously, as Ms. Runa said, she likes piano, but did not study due to family reasons, but this does not affect her love at all. The piano music of Castle in the Sky is also a well-known piece for neon people. Because of Hayao Miyazaki's animated film Castle in the Sky, more people know this piano music. In fact, compared to the West, people in Asia have less exposure to piano music because there are various musical instruments. You play really well, what do you think, Kurosawa? Igarashi Runa was not so easily attracted. She just looked at him for a few times and then asked with a smile. Not bad, Kurosawa Hikaru responded, listening to the sound of the piano. Not bad. This evaluation is a bit average. What do you think is wrong? Igarashi Runa found it intriguing and asked curiously. It feels very restrictive, or stingy, Kurosawa Hikaru expressed his opinion. This was the result he heard, because as a permanent reward for getting started with piano, he was instilled with music theory knowledge and a variety of classical piano repertoire. But the standard of the system, even for entry-level users, is very scary. Stingy, Igarashi Runa glanced at the performer on the stage and didn't quite understand. Chizuru Ninomiya, whose attention was attracted by the piano just now, also looked at Hikari Kurosawa curiously. Although there are piano scores for piano music, the scores are dead, and people are alive. They vary from person to person. He doesn't dare to take the lead and is willing to become a foil. It sounds very restrictive. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't comment on his skills, and he didn't know how strong he was. He just expressed his thoughts. It seems like this is true. Can you play the piano? Ninomiya Chizuru asked after thinking for a while. Laymen watch the excitement, while insiders watch the door. She didn't feel much at all if Kurosawa didn't say it just now, but now that she tasted it carefully, it was indeed not as good as the many versions she had heard before. I know a little bit. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't dare to confirm, so he could only be modest. You couldn't be more jealous because Chizuru looked at her, right? Igarashi Runa teased, pretending not to notice. Kurosawa Hikaru glanced at Ninomiya Chizuru and said nothing, which was regarded as acquiescence. What's the use of being jealous? Didn't you say you know a little bit? Just go up and play. Okay, Kurosawa nodded and agreed. That's what you said. After receiving his approval, Igarashi Runa no longer hesitated, stood up and walked towards the waiter to discuss the matter. In fact, when they walked out of the amusement park, the two of them walked a little faster together and agreed on some things. For example, this restaurant has a piano. If a customer is good at playing the piano, he or she can perform on stage. The most important thing is that Kurosawa asked Runa to help him find ways to create opportunities for him to play on stage. Kurosawa wants to go up and play. What level is your piano level? Seeing Runa's action of not giving him any way to turn back, Ninomiya Chizuru was a little shocked and asked. Level 0, right? Kurosawa Hikaru saw her expression and smiled. He doesn't know what level he is at playing piano, but he has a sense of confidence that if he goes on stage, he will definitely be better than that player. Can you play the piano? Seeing that ungrateful look, Ninomiya Chihi lowered her body slightly and couldn't help but feel irritated. She didn't even notice that after Runa left, her voice and tone became a little more coquettish. The purpose of the grade examination is just to prove that a person has reached a certain level and can have better cognition. Kurosawa Hikaru did not answer the question, but changed the subject. Are you trying to say that the grade exam is not important? Ninomiya Chizuru thought for a while and asked. Although she has never been to the piano exam, she still knows something about it. The most important role of the qualification certificate for the grading test is its professional ability. Being able to obtain the certificate means that the person's level has reached a certain level. If you want to go to restaurants, bars, and various places to perform, the qualification certificate is a pass. Children in their teens can get the 10th level. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded slightly. That's right. Ninomiya Chizuru felt that there was some truth. Talented children, as long as they study harder, can get the 10th level certificate in their teens. Professional piano practitioners do not take grading tests, and in their eyes, the 10th level is just an entry level. I have asked for instructions. When that person finishes playing, you can go up and play a song. I want to see how well you play. At the same time, Igarashi Runa came back, looked at the player on the stage, and sat down with a smile. Piano music is usually very short, about 2 to 4 minutes. Please keep the headphones for me. As the song came to an end, Kurosawa Hikaru took off the big headphones hanging around his neck and handed them to Ninomiya Chizuru. You don't listen to music with these headphones. Ninomiya Chizuru took the wireless headphones, took a look and found that they were not turned on at all, feeling a little helpless. It's for decoration, just like a girl's earrings. Kurosawa Hikaru smiled, then stood up and walked to the stage. On the stage, as the performance ended, a waiter came forward and said something to the performer. Normally, if the performer on the stage changes, anyone who is used to coming to a Western restaurant will not care, unless a famous pianist comes. However, when Kurosawa Hikaru walked to the stage, he still attracted some attention. Wow, handsome guy. The foreign beauty took a look at Kurosawa Hikaru and praised him generously. Kurosawa Hikaru's appearance, with clear contours, coupled with the bright red and eye-catching clothes, looks very fashionable and extremely handsome. I have no problem if you want to play the piano, but you should know the rules, right? As he walked to the stage, the man in front of the piano stood up and whispered as he approached. I wonder what the rules are. Kurosawa Hikaru was a little confused. There are no rules, but we can't play the same piece. The performer was a little surprised that he didn't even understand this, but he still explained it clearly. No problem, I don't want to play Castle in the Sky. Kurosawa Mitsuru smiled after learning the rules. Come on. After explaining this, the performer patted him on the shoulder and temporarily left the stage. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 54. As the last performer left the stage, Kurosawa Hikaru sat down at the piano. As he sat down, his presence suddenly became extremely strong. No one had ever heard him play the piano before. No one had seen him before. But for some reason, in people's eyes, he looked very imposing, as if he was a pianist about to start performing. It was an obvious temperament. Sitting in front of the piano, he seemed to be the protagonist of the audience, attracting attention. Everyone realized that he was going to play the piano, and they immediately became lively. Is it a neon star? I don't know, I've never seen it. Foreigners don't know him at all, but they think he must have a good figure, good looks, and most importantly, temperament. His fingers are so long. Looks so handsome. There are also some neon women sighing. Those who can come to such Western restaurants to spend money are usually adults. My permanent entry-level singing voice has allowed me to dominate the karaoke scene. I wonder what the entry-level piano will be like. Sitting in front of the piano, Kurosawa didn't start playing immediately, but was brewing. To be honest, he was a little nervous. Because this was no longer a private party, but a stage like a restaurant, with many strangers looking at him. However, Kurosawa Hikaru did not delay for too long. He raised his hands and gently placed them on top of the piano. With this action, The restaurant gradually became quiet, and many people looked towards the stage, waiting for his performance. Being watched by many people, Kurosawa Hikaru glanced at Ninomiya Chizuru in the distance, and finally lowered his fingers and started his playing. The soft and moving sound of the piano sounded, and for just a moment, it shocked people's spirits, as if there was an electric current pouring into the body along with the sound heard by the ears. But anyone who likes music will already know what this piece is just from the beginning. This is Beethoven's Für Elise, one of the famous piano pieces. This piece is sweet, short, delicate, and easy to play. Anyone who has learned piano, even a beginner, can play it. However, it is easy to get started, but difficult to master. Its high degree of artistry and expressiveness make it a favorite piece of music played by many musicians. The beautiful sound of the piano resounded in the restaurant. It was different from the City in the Sky played by the previous performer. It was too restrained and stingy and was only used as background music. This song to Alice had already become the focus of the audience the moment it was played, attracting most people's eyes and attention. What's more, as the song progressed, the increasingly exciting piano sound sounded, causing everyone to stop talking and look at the performers on the stage. No one spoke. Although there were waiters walking, they were subconsciously controlling their movements to avoid making any noise. Everyone was listening to this piano music and looking at the people on the stage. It seemed like a musician was playing. People were listening, and the moment Kurosawa Hikaru touched the piano with his hands, he was already immersed in it and couldn't extricate himself. He felt that the keys in his hand were extremely familiar, like his arms driving his fingers, and like muscle memory, they were engraved into his body. As he fiddled and touched it, the piano made beautiful sounds, interacting and blending with him. Because of his basic knowledge of piano music theory, he felt the charm of this piece more directly than anyone else. Unknowingly, Kurosawa Hikaru's movements gradually slowed down, and he pressed the last note of the piano. The beautiful sound of the piano left a lingering sound. There was still silence in the restaurant. Is this the piano? Kurosawa Hikaru retracted his hands and looked at the delicate musical instrument in front of him, having an extremely wonderful experience. Before this, he had never thought that one day he would play the piano, let alone appreciate the charm of the piano. In fact, he prefers rock and pop music to piano music because it is more in line with modern people's audiovisual enjoyment. But at this moment, he completely felt the beauty of classical music and the composer's exquisite and jaw-dropping talent. Pap 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 pap. At this moment, a round of applause sounded, like 1,000 waves. In an instant, loud and fierce applause resounded throughout the restaurant, like thunder, and even more enthusiastic. Facing such applause of recognition, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little dazed. He immediately stood up, bowed to the guests present, and stepped down from the side. Your skills can be used as a career, so why haven't I heard of you? The previous performer who was waiting under the stage couldn't help but said when he saw Kurosawa Hikaru coming down. There was a bit of envy in his eyes, as well as a hint of discouragement that could not be concealed. This young man must have good looks and strength. Such a person cannot be without fame. Be confident when you play the piano. You have the ability, but you are too restrained. Come on. Kurosawa didn't explain, just patted him on the shoulder, reminded him and left. Thank you for your advice. Although Hikaru Kurosawa was obviously younger in age, the performer was shocked when he heard these words and bowed to him to thank him. A master is a teacher. In the field of piano, there is a big gap between him and this young man. The most important thing is that the other party hit the nail on the head and hit the mark on his problem. Because he had not achieved much in playing the piano for many years, and just playing in a restaurant had smoothed his edges. Soon, Kurosawa Hikaru returned to his seat under the attention of the guests. Now I understand why you said that the Sky Castle was played too stingily. Ninomiya Chizuru waited for him to come back and handed him the headphones, and couldn't help saying. You call this entry level? A little bit, Igarashi Runa felt very speechless and angry. In fact, she had been worrying about whether it was right or wrong for her to help Kurosawa Hikaru create an opportunity to perform on stage, just because this guy said in the morning that he was at the entry level. Professional entry level. Kurosawa Hikaru shrugged and smiled at her indignation. The system's rating for his ability reward was indeed entry level, and he had no choice, he didn't know what level he was at. But the words of the performer just now made him aware of his level. As they sat down, the people in the restaurant also noticed this table. What a pity, does he have a female companion? Tisk. Some women saw the interaction between Kurosawa Hikaru and Ninomiya Chizuru and felt pity and dissatisfaction. There are also many people who look at Ninomiya Chizuru with envy and jealousy. The piano piece To Alice can also be understood as a love song, dedicated to the one you love the most. There is no doubt that Kurosawa Hikaru's performance just now was dedicated to the blue-haired woman with frameless glasses, cold temperament, and beautiful appearance. She is tall and handsome, and can play the piano. She is so romantic. Sure enough, all the good men are snatched away. As a teacher, Ninomiya Chizuru has long been accustomed to being watched. Naturally, she noticed people's whispers and the envious and jealous eyes of the girls. But unlike in the classroom, the feeling of being noticed at this moment gave her an extremely strong sense of superiority and satisfaction. This unprecedented experience made her inadvertently, on her cold and calm face, a faint and proud smile appeared. 2 more are sent, please invest, collect, recommend tickets, and monthly tickets. I would also like to thank Mengwenken and Tianyawanyaji and Wenro for their 500 Kidian coins. Finally, I created a reader group, 138173473. Everyone is welcome to join the group to urge updates and chat together. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 55. A piano piece, To Alice, made the dinner table livelier. How come I haven't seen you mention playing the piano in more than a year in school? Ninomiya Chizuru was a little curious. In school, I naturally have to focus on academics. As for piano, it can't add points to my major. Kurosawa Hikaru had already thought about how to face such a problem and explained. Really? Ninomiya Chizuru thought about it and felt that it made sense. Perhaps for art students, talent on a musical instrument like the piano can be a plus, but Kurosawa is majoring in finance. You are so good. You keep fit, play the piano, dress well, and read Runa. Igarashi praised him without hesitation. I have to say that her impression of Kurosawa Hikaru is super good. Maybe her best friends are the ones responsible for finding faults, but in her eyes, Kurosawa has no shortcomings at all. What an award! Kurosawa Hikaru cast a grateful look at her. It is no exaggeration to say that the smooth completion of today's appointment task and the advancement of the project is largely due to Ms. Runa. If you were dating alone, you might not have such a good experience. The atmosphere of the next dinner was very good. As the dishes were served in the restaurant, everyone started to eat. At the dinner table, everyone also chatted about today's activities, such as which projects were more fun. The number one in my mind is Goofy, what about you? Igarashi Runa took the lead in opening the topic and took everyone to recall today's experience. Haunted house. Kurosawa thought for a moment, and although he couldn't bear to poke her scar, he still answered. Perhaps today's project started with JFI. When he carefully held teacher Ninomiya's hand, he was very moved and made him feel like he was truly alive. But the highlight has to be the haunted house. Whether it was Mr. Ninomiya holding his arm, showing his feminine side in a scary environment, or the experience of being carried through the haunted house by him, it all made him feel, he was impressed. He felt that even decades later, when he mentioned the amusement park or the haunted house, he would still recall everything that happened today. Didn't you say you're afraid of ghosts? Why do you think a haunted house is the best? Igarashi Runa saw a smile inadvertently showing on his lips. She was obviously very happy. She didn't expose it, but said silently. In this regard, Kurosawa Hikaru said nothing and just used a smile to explain it away. High-flying car. As his eyes shifted to himself, Ninomiya Chizuru thought for a while and said. In fact, the first place in her mind is also the haunted house, because the experience is so novel, and it is even more impressive and unforgettable. It brings happiness, fear, and peace of mind. Many emotions are mixed in her heart. It is simply not what other projects can do. Then. But she felt that if she said it was a haunted house, she might be teased by Runa, so she had to make another choice. Goofy is really strong. Igarashi Runa did not tease or boo, but just sighed. The meal must be eaten one bite at a time, the road must be walked step by step, and things cannot be rushed. In any case, she felt that Kurosawa's performance today was very good, and if he kept it up for a long time, he would definitely be able to get together with Chizuru. What surprised her the most was that Kurosawa could also play the piano, and he played it so well. This was a very rare bonus. Chatting and eating at the same time, it was settled not long after dinner. After they had eaten and drank enough, Ninomiya Chizuru called in the waiters. Pay the bill. This gentleman has already paid for it. Upon hearing this request, the waiter stiffened for a moment, smiled apologetically, and then motioned to Kurosawa Hikaru with his hand. As soon as these words came out, the table fell silent instantly. Is there anything else you need? The waiter was the first to break the awkwardness. It's okay, Ninomiya Chizuru thought for a while and said nothing more. Walking out of the Western restaurant, the three of them walked together. When did you pay for it? After returning to the car, Ninomiya Chizuru asked as she sat down. Her beautiful eyebrows frowned slightly, a little dissatisfied with him paying for it. Originally, she had decided before that since she had invited her best friend to go to the amusement park together today, she would have to take care of everything she paid for. Just when I was talking about going to the toilet, you are paying for it today, so you have to give me a chance to pay for it. Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't hide it, so he could only say frankly. The money I paid was just a small sum, but you spent a lot of money this time. How much did you spend? Ninomiya Chizuru didn't want this, so she took out her wallet and asked. It's not a matter of money. You'll pay for the lunch meal, and I'll pay for the dinner in the evening. It's a courtesy. Seeing her like this, Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head. Can he, if someone has your heart, don't refuse. Igarashi Runa, who was sitting in the driver's seat, also advised. Well. Ninomiya Chizuru's red lips trembled a few times, but she finally suppressed what was in her heart. She was a little helpless. If there were two people, it would be just right for you to have a meal and for me to have a meal. The problem was that she had brought someone with her. For a while, the atmosphere in the car became a little quiet. Kurosawa Hikaru had a headache over this situation. He didn't expect that it would end up like this if he rushed to pay for it. The car started, drove out of the parking space, and started on the way home. Kurosawa, after this meal, you won't be eating instant noodles for the next month, right? After running like this for 2 minutes, Igarashi Runa was the first to break the silence. No, how much does this meal cost? Could it be that you are still the second generation of rich people? That's not true. I just worked part-time and saved a little money. Although it's not much, I won't starve myself just for one meal. Seeing her helping to set up the stage, Kurosawa Hikaru also took the opportunity to explain. Although this meal was very expensive, it was really painless to him. Part-time job? What part-time job do you do? Igarashi Runa was a little curious. It's okay not to say anything. Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while and said nothing more. If I talk more, Maybe it will be like the karaoke session where I ask how much the hourly wage is and then use the app to check it. Say it. He's tutoring. Ninomiya Chizuru knew that her sigh just now made the atmosphere very strange, so she simply answered on her behalf. I heard that the hourly salary of a tutor is quite high. It's okay. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't say much this time. Does Chizuru know how much he earns per hour? 20,000. So much. He works as a tutor for the eldest daughter of a wealthy family. Kurosawa, I find that you really deserve a beating. Why do you deserve a beating? When the truth was revealed, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised when he heard this statement. You obviously know how to play the piano, but you say you can do it a little bit, and your hourly salary is 20,000, and you say it's okay. Doesn't that mean you don't deserve a beating? Then what should I do? Tell you that I can play the piano very well. I am very good at it. I work as a tutor and my hourly salary is as high as 20,000. Seeing that she insisted on this statement, Kurosawa simply changed his tone and demonstrated. Forget it, just keep it that way. It's more deserving of beatings and annoying. Although he didn't look back, Igarashi Runa, who was driving, felt inexplicably disgusted after hearing his words, so he said. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 56. After chatting for a while, the car became quiet. At this moment, Kurosawa Hikaru's cell phone rang, and it was Line's notification tone. Hearing this voice, his heart tightened. He thought it was a message from Sayuki, so he didn't read it. The date isn't over until everyone goes home. At this moment, Ninomiya Chizuru pushed him gently with her hand, motioning him to look at his phone, and shook his phone in the corner with his other hand. Upon noticing this, Kurosawa Hikaru picked up his phone and took a look, and found that it was a message from Ninomiya Chizuru. Sorry, I want to pay because I brought someone here this time, so I don't want you to spend money. Miss Runa drove us all the way to the amusement park. It was so hard. If I don't pay the bill this time and thank her, I don't know when I will get the chance. Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned for a moment, turned to look at her, understood the root cause of her displeasure, and responded. Having said that, I want to make up for leaving her in the haunted house tonight. That's why Runa chose such an expensive restaurant. Let me have this meal. Tell me how much it cost. Next time if you have a chance, invite her again. 96,000. After thinking for a while, Kurosawa made a decision. Since she has to do this to be happy, then satisfy her. Wanting to pay for a meal is not a big deal to them. Ninomiya Chizuru glanced down at her phone. Because it was getting late and there was no light in the back seat, it was difficult to see her expression and look clearly. I'll get back to you on Monday. Good. Runa Igarashi vaguely noticed what they were chatting and communicating on their mobile phones through the rearview mirror, but she was wise enough to say nothing. Chizuru is a woman with a high emotional and IQ, and she will solve problems if they arise, and she will obviously handle this. As for Kurosawa, she feels the same way. The feeling of getting along with him is very comfortable. His attitude towards others is not too respectful, but he is never rude, polite, and appropriate, just right. After driving like this for a while, Igarashi Runa thought for a while, then turned on the music and adjusted the volume to just right. Runa, you really like the karaoke singer. Hearing her playing the song from that video again, Ninomiya Chizuru couldn't help but sigh. I think he has great potential. I have a very strong feeling that he will be as popular as Rika Fujiwara. Igarashi Runa nodded and said in an extremely confident tone. Maybe there is only one video, and you still can't see the video of the person, only the sound can be heard. but it is this video that shows the unparalleled singing voice of the karaoke singer. No matter what kind of song it is, he can control it. As long as he finds a composer and a lyricist, and they join forces, they will be absolutely invincible. Fujiwara Rika, Kurosawa Hikaru always felt a little familiar when he heard this name. I forgot to tell you, Runa is a gold medal manager and quite famous in the industry. The most famous artist she signed is Fujiwara Rika. Sensing his difference, Ninomiya Chizuru explained. Agent? Is he the artist's manager? Kurosawa pretended to be surprised. Yes. Finally revealing his identity, Igarashi Runa raised the corner of his mouth with some satisfaction. I finally opened up the topic. I was so happy after playing all day today. It would be boring if the way home was so dull. Wait a minute, let me check Fujiwara Rika first. It sounds familiar. Kurosawa Hikaru had known about her profession for a long time, but didn't know much about it, so he immediately took out his mobile phone and started searching. After checking, he found it. The most popular female artist of the new generation, Rika Fujiwara, has appeared on the stage of the Kohaku Song Festival one after another in recent years. She is good at singing, dancing, and dubbing, and has a strong influence. She has won many awards, is extremely famous, and has several well-known and popular songs. Ms. Runa, don't show your real face, Fujiwara Rika is actually the artist you signed. After realizing who they were talking about, Kurosawa Hikaru sighed. Humph, you didn't expect it, did you? Do you like her? Do you want me to get an autograph for you? Hearing this incredible exclamation, Igarashi Runa felt that she had regained the game and said proudly. I'm not very interested in her autograph. If you could get me Beethoven's autograph, I would be very grateful. Kurosawa shook his head and then joked. Okay, when I die, I'll go find Beethoven and get you an autograph. Igarashi Runa smiled as he realized that his favorite idol was a former pianist. Runa, drive the car and don't say such unlucky words. Even though her words depended on the atmosphere, Ninomiya Chizuru couldn't help herself when she heard this. Ha ha ha, Igarashi Runa was laughing. It was a long drive, although for the first hour everyone was chatting. But after talking too much, everyone became a little thirsty and tired after waking up early in the morning, so they gradually stopped talking. The driving speed at night is not as fast as in the morning, after all, the road is not clear enough. It was a long road. Kurosawa Hikaru turned his head slightly and looked out the window, feeling very good. He gained a lot today. Not only did he have a happy date, he also received a mission reward. In the past, he used up all his energy just to study and had no time to learn any talents. But now, because of the system, he found that having talent is really wonderful, which makes people feel particularly satisfied and full of enthusiasm for life. With many thoughts in mind, he turned his head and looked at the side, and found that Ninomiya Chizuru had stopped moving. Her elbow was against the car door, her palm was supporting one side of her cheek, and her eyes were closed. It seemed that she was too tired and fell asleep, but her posture was very elegant and intellectual. The other party will trigger the task only if they want to date. If it weren't for the system, I'm afraid I would never have the courage to invite her for a date in my life. Looking at her beautiful profile, Kurosawa Hikari curled his lips. In fact, when Kurosawa Hikari saw her for the first time, he thought she was very beautiful and charming, and he secretly liked her. Even more, he had imagined the story of him and Ninomiya teacher together, such as falling in love with each other during college and officially being together when they graduated. But because of the difference between teacher and student, the two sides rarely had the opportunity to contact each other. He thought it was a one-sided affection and a fruitless fantasy, so he simply put it off. But now it seems that he is also the same in the eyes of Mr. Ninomiya. They both felt that the other party was excellent, but because of their identity and situation, they could only fantasize about it in their hearts. Ha! Just then, he vaguely heard a yawn between his own singing. "Ms. Runa, are you sleepy? Why don't you let me drive?" Kurosawa Mitsuru asked after glancing at the front. "Can you drive?" "I have a driver's license." Kurosawa Mitsuru nodded. He knew how to drive in his previous life and got a driver's license, so it was easy for him to learn to drive in this life. "No, Chizuru is asleep. If you have time, let her sleep more comfortably." "How to make her comfortable?" "For example, let her sleep on your legs." "Isn't that a bit bad?" "She's still wearing the seat belt." "Then won't you unfasten it?" "That's too deliberate, not good." Kurosawa Mitsuru looked sideways at the seat belt that crossed his chest, and shook his head. If he suddenly woke up while unfastening the seat belt, it would be embarrassing. "That's right." Igarashi Runa smiled when she saw that he was very calm and would not be instigated by a few words. "I created a reader group, it's below, you can join with one click." Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 57. The car drove back to Tokyo and arrived at the door of Kurosawa Hikaru's apartment. It was already past 11 o'clock. "Bye, see you next time." As Kurosawa Hikaru got out of the car, Igarashi Runa rolled down the window and waved goodbye to him. "Bye." Kurosawa Hikaru closed the car door and smiled. "Go to bed early, don't stay up late." At this moment, a cold voice came from the car, and it was the voice of Ninomiya Chizuru. "Miss Ninomiya, go to bed early." Kurosawa Hikaru realized that it might be the noise of him getting out of the car that woke her up, and he also responded. There was no need to say too much when saying goodbye, because everyone was sleepy and tired. It should be a pretty perfect date, right? Kurosawa Hikaru stood there and looked for a while, watching the car go away, and then he said to himself with a sense of relief. Looking back on what happened today, except for the trampoline in the children's park at the beginning, the other projects were basically fun. After thinking about it, he walked into the apartment. "When did you wake up?" Igarashi Runa was driving the car, and after glancing through the rearview mirror, she couldn't help but ask. "I was awake all the time, including when you asked him to unbuckle my seat belt," Ninomiya Chizuru said lightly. She didn't sleep from beginning to end, but just closed her eyes to rest. A cough. Igarashi Runa was a little embarrassed to hear her words were very resentful. "Why do you help him so much?" Ninomiya Chizuru sat in the back seat, with her right leg on her left leg, looking at her with her arms folded. "I didn't feel anything during the day, but now I think about it, Runa helped Kurosawa in many ways. You are not young anymore, you should find a partner and prepare for marriage. Find one first and then talk to me." "Who said I have a boyfriend in the morning that you are saying this now?" "You didn't decide to help him because of this sentence." Ninomiya Chizuru looked strange, a little surprised. "Yes and no, mainly because I feel that you care about him." From this sentence, Igarashi Runa shrugged. It was because of this sentence that her view and positioning of Kurosawa Hikaru today was directly fixed as her bestie's future boyfriend. That's why she tried so hard to assist, and even did not reject physical contact such as princess hug on the trampoline. "It's not that I don't want you to be together, but his academic performance is very good, and he has the potential to study for a doctorate and graduate school. Before that, there is no need to waste energy on love." Ninomiya Chizuru adjusted her glasses and fiddled with her hair, with a calm expression. Seeing her actions, Igarashi Runa did not speak again, but just raised the corners of her mouth playfully. After being besties for more than 20 years, no one knows Chizuru better than her. Even Chizuru's parents are definitely not as good as her. Before Chizuru said anything, she fiddled with her hair to cover up her panic and guilt, and pretended to be calm. Although there was not much practical progress in today's date, Chizuru definitely had some thoughts about Kurosawa Hikaru, but she just kept it in her heart. Maybe Chizuru had planned from the beginning, and would put it into action after Kurosawa Hikaru graduated. After returning home, Kurosawa Hikaru took a shower and took off his fashionable clothes. When he came out of the bathroom, he wiped his hair with a towel, wearing a t-shirt and shorts. He opened his phone and took a look, but there was no message. After Xiaoyuki learned that he also had dinner with the teacher, she stopped sending messages. After thinking about it, Kurosawa Hikaru sent an emoticon to Xiaoyuki. As soon as it was sent, it showed that it had been read. Obviously, the other party was hanging on his line page. But Kurosawa Hikaru wiped his hair almost completely dry, and didn't wait for a reply. "Are you asleep?" He didn't think much about it, but realized the problem through this situation. Immediately, he didn't send more messages to disturb her, tidied up, and lay down on the bed. In a short while, he fell asleep. He got up at 6 o'clock in the morning and went to bed at 11:30 at night. In addition, he had played in the amusement park for a whole day. Even if his body could still bear it, his spirit was exhausted. That night, he had a dream. He dreamed that he was playing the piano in a super large concert hall. The audience was full, and the fans were like a sea of people. Not only to Alice, he also played many piano pieces, each of which made him extremely excited and each of which could draw thunderous applause. Dream. When he opened his eyes again, the ceiling came into view, and Kurosawa Hikaru came back to his senses. This dream was very real, because now he knew very clearly that he could really play the piano. Just the entry level can make him have such a high level. What if one day he reaches the mastery level or even a higher level? Sitting up from the bed, Kurosawa Hikaru walked into the bathroom and started to flush. According to the system's classification, the entry level is professional level, so how terrifying must the master level archery be? Alone, he recalled what happened yesterday and realized some problems. Now he has a total of 6 permanent rewards. Singing, leg skills, parkour, piano, painting, are all entry level, only archery is master level. Being versatile does not mean that all of them can be brought into play, because some abilities must have a suitable stage. At present, he only has a relatively deep understanding and experience of singing and piano. His singing voice is very good. According to Miss Runa's praise, he is better than most singers before his debut. His piano is also very good. According to the performer in the Western restaurant yesterday, he is at least at a professional level. Wait until the date is over today, and see if it is possible to try archery. After thinking for a while, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little eager to try. He really wanted to see how strong the talent of the master level was. Only with comparison can we know the difference and size. He only has theoretical knowledge but no practical experience. That feeling is like a mirage, not very realistic. After walking out of the bathroom, he picked up his mobile phone and took a look. Sure enough, Xiaoyuki had already replied, "Sorry, I fell asleep last night." Seeing this apology with emoticons, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but curl his lips. This feeling makes people feel very comfortable, because in your life, there is one more person who will send you messages, and you are no longer alone. Good morning, Yuki-chan. Good morning, Hikaru. Meet at Shinjuku Station at 9:30. Yeah. Ichi knows Yuki's attitude was very obedient. After the matter was settled, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at the time of 8:40, put down his phone and went to pack his things. Because he had to bring a swimsuit and sunscreen, and also put his phone and other things, he put everything in his shoulder bag. After finishing this, he opened the wardrobe and began to think about today's outfit. Different types of women like different clothes. In addition, different occasions have different clothing styles. However, when Kurosawa Hikaru bought clothes on Friday, he bought a lot of sets, no longer just casual clothes and shirt uniforms. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 58. Chapter 58 Heartbeat 33. Shinjuku Station on Sunday was still very crowded and bustling. Kurosawa Hikaru got off the subway, took out his phone and looked at it, and then began to patrol. Brother Hikaru. Before he could find someone, a sweet and enthusiastic voice rang out. The next moment, a person ran out of the crowd. Kurosawa Hikaru looked over and met a pair of beautiful eyes full of surprise. When he met her eyes, he was stunned for a moment. With bright blonde hair, overlapping bangs, and falling hair, Ichino's Yuki was wearing an off-shoulder suspender dress today. The upper part was red folded with a button seam design, and the lower part was a long dress as white as gauze. Although it was a long dress, it only revealed her snow-white and slender calves, but it still attracted people's attention. She wore a pair of blue earrings, which matched her green eyes. On her smooth and jade-like pearl shoulders, a strawberry mark looked very conspicuous. Unlike the hot girl outfit that day, today she looks sweet and sexy. You are dressed so beautifully, which is different from the style that day. Kurosawa Hikaru glanced at her shoulder and smiled. Brother Hikaru is also dressed very handsomely. Ichino's Yuki, who was holding a bag in her hand, was also looking at him with surprise and admiration. Different from the outfit she requested that day. Brother Hikaru today has a very handsome hairstyle, wearing a dark blue short-sleeved jacket, a black short-sleeved t-shirt inside, black trousers on the lower body, and a belt across the waistband, which looks very mature and handsome. Sure enough, Brother Hikaru is completely different from those boys in school. From the inside to the outside, he gives people a mature and steady handsomeness, just like the style of an older brother. When did you arrive? Kurosawa Hikaru smiled. Just arrived. Let's go, buy tickets. Where are we going? Chiba Prefecture, Onjuku Beach. That's pretty close. I have classes tomorrow, so I can't go too far. Yeah. This handsome man and beautiful woman are eye-catching. In fact, before Kurosawa Hikaru came, Ichino's Yuki had been waiting for more than 10 minutes, and during that time many people went to chat with her, but returned empty-handed. Not long after, they walked to the ticket machine and started buying tickets. I'll buy it. When Kurosawa Hikaru took out his wallet to put money in, Ichino's Yuki rushed to put the money in. Okay, but I'll pay for everything from now on. Seeing that she was quick and prepared, Kurosawa Hikaru shrugged and didn't fight with her. Isn't it eh? You can kiss me like before. Kurosawa Hikaru was more relaxed when getting along with her, and he joked. It's not good to do this. Yuki Ichino's always felt weird. Although she used a kiss on the face to offset the reimbursement of 100,000 yuan when she was in the hotel before. It was okay once, but if it went on for a long time, she felt that the relationship between them was very strange. Then there's no need to kiss. I invited you today, so I'll pay for it. Seeing her expression, Kurosawa Hikaru changed his words. Well. Hearing this proposal, Yuki Ichino's glanced at his handsome face, hesitated, and finally felt extremely annoyed. If this is the case, she has no reason to kiss Brother Hikaru. Today is a date, a place to play. How can you be so sad before you set off? Seeing her sad face, Kurosawa Hikaru stretched out his hand and gently pinched her cheek, teasing. After playing for a while, they got on the high-speed train. Not long after, the two of them successfully sat down. You are wearing a shoulder-bearing dress, aren't you embarrassed to let people see the strawberry mark? Kurosawa Hikaru sat on her left-hand side, looking at the strawberry mark on her shoulder, and asked. From his perspective, seeing this strawberry mark gives him a sense of possessiveness and vanity being satisfied. If others see the strawberry mark, they will subconsciously think that she has a boyfriend. Anyway, I've been seen in swimming class, so I'm not afraid. And this strawberry mark is very useful. Not many people approached me just now. However, How could Ichi-nose Yuki be shy about such a thing? She dared to run around in the revealing and fashionable clothes of hot girls. It was just a strawberry mark. Aoi, Lan, and Tong had already had it countless times. There are not many people, but there are still some. There are always people who don't know what's interesting. You are so beautiful and charming, so even if they see the strawberry mark, they don't believe it and want to try to steal her. Steal her, Ichi-nose Yuki didn't quite understand when she heard this. It means that you want to chase someone else's girlfriend even though you know she is your girlfriend. Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned for a moment, and then explained. This is neon, and there seems to be no such saying. So that's what you mean. After hearing his explanation, Ichi-nose Yuki's pretty face flushed slightly, nodded and whispered. What does this mean is that Kwang Ji thinks she is his girlfriend. That is to say, Kwang Ji still admitted the love transaction. If you think about it carefully, if he doesn't admit it, how can the 100,000 that day be offset by a kiss on the face? At the same time, a line of words appeared in front of Kurosawa Hikaru. Task progress update, Ichi-nose Yuki, heartbeat number 2/3. Seeing this scene, Kurosawa Hikaru looked sideways. This girl is so easy to capture. You don't even have to think of ways to do anything. You will be moved naturally. Kurosawa Hikaru thought about it and decided to add fuel to the fire. He lowered his head and leaned close to her ear. Yuki. He looked at Yuki's ears that were close at hand, small and well-defined, and looked very cute. He lowered his voice and said in a deep voice. What's wrong? The magnetic and low voice sounded in her ears, making Ichi-nose Yuki feel numb all over. This voice is so beautiful that people will never get tired of listening to it for a lifetime. At the same time, she was also a little curious about what Hikaru wanted to whisper. How about I help you apply sunscreen later? Kurosawa Hikaru was originally worried about how to bring up this matter. Since she is now moved, he will take advantage of the victory. After these words came out, Ichi-nose Yuki's blue eyes with beautiful contact lenses suddenly widened. She felt unbelievable and wondered if she had heard it wrong. However, as soon as she glanced sideways, she bumped into a pair of fascinating black eyes, and saw that look that was not a joke at all. Realizing that she had heard correctly, she lowered her head and couldn't help but glance at his palm. His nails were trimmed just right, his 5 fingers were slender, and his palms were big, which looked very good. Thinking of applying sunscreen, which meant that his hands would be smeared all over her body, Ichi-nose Yuki's heartbeat could not help but accelerate, as if a monkey was jumping around. Task progress update, Ichi-nose Yuki, heartbeat number 3/3. At the same time, another line of words appeared in front of Kurosawa Hikaru. However, he didn't care, but looked at the side face that was close at hand. A touch of red cloud flew on that pretty face. Even more, even the small ears and the snow white and slender neck were stained with a touch of crimson, which was so cute that it made people's heart beat. Well. After a long silence, Ichi-nose Yuki nodded, and agreed to this matter in a weak voice. Please recommend, vote, collect, invest, and read. Please don't keep the book in your pocket. The performance of the new book is especially important, and it determines how far the book can go. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 59. It only takes just over half an hour to take the high-speed train from Shinjuku to Chiba. After getting off the station, they transferred to other trains. At about 10:30, they arrived at Onjuku Beach in Chiba Prefecture. There are so many people. When they came to the beach, Yuki Ichi-nose stood high and looked into the distance. He was a little surprised when he looked around. Although it was still morning, there were many people on the coast and it was obviously very vast. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at the vast sea. The water was clear and there were many people surfing outside the beach, which made him a little eager to try it. He chose Onjuka Beach because this coast is a paradise for surfers, with excellent waves that constantly emerge, and surfer competitions and carnivals are held every year. Because he had mission funds for surfing skills, when he was choosing, he chose this beach and wanted to experience it. Eat something first, or just play. However, Kurosawa Hikaru still asked his companions for their opinions first. The most taboo thing about dating is talking to yourself without considering the other person's feelings at all. To be precise, this is true not just for dating, but for any interpersonal relationship. "Are you hungry?" Yuki Ichinose asked. "I had something to eat before going out." Kurosawa shook his head slightly. "Me too." A smile bloomed on Ichinose Yuki's face, like a tacit understanding between two people. "Then let's play first and then have lunch after 12 o'clock. It will be a good time to take a rest then." Kurosawa Hikaru curled his lips and decided to take action. After deciding on the matter, the two took action. There are still many things to prepare before the actual game. For example, sun umbrellas, beach mats, waterproof mobile phone bags, and sun loungers are all available for rent at the beach. Just choose this place. Holding such a thing, Kurosawa Hikaru chose a relatively empty area. Although there were people everywhere, there was no one else within 7 meters. Aha! After hearing his decision, Yuki Ichinose put down the beach mat. Immediately, Kurosawa put down the 2 folding sun chairs and opened them. He tied up the sun umbrella and rocked it back and forth in the sand. In no time, they had arranged it. While Yuki Ichinose looked at the scene in front of her, a little surprised. An oversized sun umbrella stood upright, 2 sun loungers were placed on both sides, and there was a large beach mat in front of it. "Today's base is settled, let's go to the locker room to change into swimsuits." Kurosawa patted the sand on his palms and was very satisfied. "Then let's go." Hearing that he was about to change into a swimsuit, Yuki Ichinose suddenly thought of something and became a little shy again. On the seaside of every beach, as long as it is not a remote and unpopular place, there will be many related facilities, such as changing rooms. Even if there are none, there will be places like public toilets for everyone to change clothes. The locker room is very dense and there is no distinction between men and women. There are lockers outside. After a while, Kurosawa Hikaru walked out of the locker room. Well enough. Kurosawa Hikaru was carrying a black satchel and wearing a pair of swimming trunks with elastic cords, which fit just right. He twisted his butt left and right to make sure it wouldn't come loose, so he felt relieved. His swimming trunks are very simple, with no special patterns, just pure black, which looks to highlight the fair skin and avoid embarrassment caused by physical characteristics. After a while, the door of the locker room next to him was opened. Immediately afterwards, Yuki Ichinose walked out. She has slightly curly blonde hair and long wavy hair. She is not wearing a bikini, but is wearing a bubble wrap and a swimming skirt on her lower body. Her skin is snow white and delicate, and her waist is voluptuous, which is obviously the result of fitness. Her thighs are plump and her calves are slender and straight, with a plump breast. She is wearing a pair of beach slippers, and her feet with manicures. Look, it looks very beautiful. Although it is not a revealing bikini, her shy and coy reaction makes her look particularly cute and sweet. Brother Guang. After mustering up the courage to come out, Ichinose Yuki felt a little uneasy, not knowing what it looked like to him. SHH. Seeing her appearance, Kurosawa whistled to show his attitude. Do not be like this. Discovering that he was whistling inappropriately, Ichinose Yuki felt some kind of signal. While he was a little happy, he also felt shy and stomped his feet. So cute. Kurosawa Hikaru laughed loudly, put away his frivolous teasing, and affirmed. Although he chose the swimsuit, Unlike looking at it through a mobile phone, it looks particularly beautiful up close. The swimsuit on the phone is just a dull picture after all, but the swimsuit in front of you is extremely vivid. Brother Hikaru's figure is too good, isn't it? Yuki Ichino's looked up after acting coquettishly, and suddenly her heartbeat accelerated and she secretly said. Although Brother Guang is not particularly tall, with a net height of 178 centimeters and a height of 1.8 meters in shoes, after taking off his clothes, his figure is strong and stylish, with six-pack abs and chest muscles. This figure is not that of an exaggerated muscular man, but just the right size, very sexy. What's wrong? Kurosawa Hikaru was naturally aware of her avoidant and attracted gaze, and felt secretly happy, but he still asked knowingly. It's okay, let's go. Yuki Ichino shook her head and didn't dare to praise him for his good figure. She found that her personality was not as open as before, and she was a little restrained. Before you leave, put on sunscreen first. As she took a step, Kurosawa Hikaru reached out and grabbed her wrist and pulled her back. Put on sunscreen first. Yuki Ichino was a little confused when she heard this after being pulled back by a strong hand. She looked at the parasols that were arranged in the distance, and then looked around. Is it here? When her eyes swept to the locker room, she reacted and her heartbeat suddenly accelerated. She was not mentally prepared yet. She thought she was going to put on sunscreen on the beach chair. Do you want to be seen putting it on the beach? Kurosawa Hikaru lowered his head and whispered. No. Yuki Ichino shook her head. There were many more people on this beach than she thought. As she shook her head, her heartbeat could not stop. In fact, during the nearly 1-hour ride on the high-speed train and the transfer, she had been looking forward to it since she agreed to help apply sunscreen. She had imagined many scenes, but she didn't expect Guang Ji to be in the locker room, which inevitably caught her off guard. Let's go. Kurosawa Hikaru saw her blushing, his heartbeat accelerated, and his body instinctively heated up, but he still said. Hearing his gentle and pleasant voice, Ichino's Yuki nodded, and walked back to the locker room without saying a word. As for Kurosawa Hikaru, he followed her footsteps and walked into the small locker room together. Click. In the locker room, the sound of locking sounded, and a closed space was formed. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 60. The changing rooms are beach-related management and were originally designed for single use. When two people entered it, it was very narrow and there wasn't much space. Boom 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 boom. Call. In the small place, the two people were silent, and the sound of heartbeat and breathing resounded through their bodies. Stand opposite each other, with their eyes facing each other, looking up and down. For a full minute, they were silent. In the end, Ichino's Yuki waited for a long time but there was no movement. Suddenly he realized that he might not have sunscreen, so he lowered his head, opened his bag, and took out a bottle of something. For you. She handed the thing in her hand to Kurosawa Hikaru without daring to raise her head, her pretty face was so red that she was about to bleed. In fact, she had had many experiences applying sunscreen before, letting Lan and Hitomi help her in the girls' locker room at school. Whether it was swimming or outdoor gym class, she would always ask for help. But since she was a child, this was the first time she let someone of the opposite sex apply sunscreen on her. This was very embarrassing, but it also made her feel an indescribable sense of excitement and anticipation, as if she was challenging a taboo. Her body and mind were anticipating what was going to happen next. Hikaru Kurosawa's feelings were not much different from hers. He was a little embarrassed and unable to make a move, but mostly he was ready to make a move. If he didn't have a date, he probably wouldn't have offered to help with applying sunscreen anyway. Turn around. However, Kurosawa took a few deep breaths and made up his mind. He decided to start with a simpler place like the back. Hearing this, Itchy Nose Yuki also felt as if he had received an amnesty, and hurriedly turned around, facing away from him. Immediately she thought of something and moved her long hair away with her hands, showing her back to him. No longer facing each other head-on, the shyness of both parties has somewhat lessened. Due to the height difference, Koyuki is a bit petite in Kurosawa's eyes. Her smooth, white, and flawless back, as well as her long and slender neck, are very beautiful. Squeezing the sunscreen on her right hand, Kurosawa first pressed it on the back of her neck and spread it from top to bottom. He had a plan on Friday and went to the internet to check how to apply it. Because Xiao Yuki's skin is very fair, smooth, and soft, his strength can't help but become gentle, as if he is treating a fragile treasure. Click. After an unknown amount of time, the door to the locker room was opened. Kurosawa Hikaru stepped out. Because the small space was very stuffy, he was sweating a lot. Yuki Itchy Nose walked out behind, her steps a little weak, dripping with sweat, and there was a light sheen on her snow-white and soft skin, which was the trace of sunscreen, delicate and beautiful. There was still a blush on his face that was hard to get rid of. This mission goal is too bad. Kurosawa Hikaru looked up at the blue sky and white clouds. What appeared in front of his eyes was that the mission goal of sunscreen was achieved, and he couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, 90% of them avoid the most important parts, just like shooting but always hitting the backboard. Brother Hikaru, I also want to help you apply sunscreen. Yuki Ichino's tone was a bit resentful. It doesn't matter, I'm not afraid of getting tanned. Kurosawa shook his head. I want to apply it for you too. However, Xiao Yuki's attitude became tougher at this time, every word. Are you going back again? Kurosawa felt that she wanted to take advantage, so he turned around and took another look at the small dressing room. Go over to the sun loungers? Yuki Itchy Nose, who was dripping with sweat, shook his head. Okay. Realizing that he was in a public place and not in a claustrophobic space like a locker room, Kurosawa was no longer afraid. Then, they started putting things into the lockers. Although they were 2 bags, they didn't carry much, so they were stuffed into a storage box. As for the key bracelet, it was worn on Kurosawa's wrist. There are also waterproof mobile phone bags hanging around their necks. It is more convenient to carry things like mobile phones with you. After a while, they crossed the beach and reached the temporary base. Let's start. Kurosawa Hikaru was not afraid, he lay down directly and asked her to start from the back. Xiao Yuki said nothing, holding the bottle of sunscreen in her hand, squeezing it into her hands and starting to rub it. After getting ready, she bent down and started. The fingertips with manicure, carrying sunscreen, moved very lightly across the back of the neck. Kurosawa, who was originally confident, couldn't help but make a sound. This feeling was wonderful, itchy, comfortable, and overpowering. It was unbearable. He now understood why Xiao Yuki screamed like that just now. It was like someone was holding a feather and gently brushing against the skin, it was very sensitive. Humph. Hearing his voice, Itchy Nose Yuki's resentful eyes disappeared, replaced by a smile and the corners of her mouth raised slightly. This was just the beginning, she wanted to return all the experience she had just had to Brother Guang. First the back of the neck, then around the neck. Kurosawa Hikaru was like a fish that landed on the beach, his body trembled and twitched from time to time. Next comes the shoulders, and the shoulder blades. Such broad shoulders. Although she wanted to take revenge for what happened just now, Itchy Nose Yuki was a little surprised when she put her hands on Kurosawa Hikaru's shoulders. Her palms were small, but Kurosawa Hikaru's shoulders were very broad and his muscles were very hard, which was very obvious in contrast. Realizing this, the thought of revenge was suddenly overwhelmed, her heartbeat accelerated a little, and her thoughts were all messed up. Although it was applying sunscreen, this was also an opportunity for her to touch Brother Hikaru. From the shoulders down, she used both hands to apply sunscreen. Holding one arm and moving down, Kurosawa Hikaru's biceps was like a small hill, and then to the palm at the end. Ichi-nose Yuki saw that he had his back to her, and after hesitating, her palm went all the way down along the arm, and finally held his palm to help him apply it evenly. It's so big. Holding his palm with this action, Ichi-nose Yuki's heart was stirred. His palm was big, his fingers were slender, and there were some calluses between his fingers, which might be caused by holding a pen for many years. Looking back, it seemed that this was the first time she shook hands with brother Hikaru. Although they had used knees as pillows on dates before, they had never shaken hands. Because it was not a formal handshake, she did not dare to hold it for too long and let it go. Her hands carefully applied the lotion on the broad and secure back, which made her feel a little playful. Huh. It lasted for a long time until her hands applied the lotion to her ankles. When she took her hands back, Kurosawa Hikari let out a long sigh of relief. Turn around. However, this was not over yet, Yuki Ichi-nose asked. Hearing this, Kurosawa Hikari turned around obediently. When he turned around, he saw Yuki standing with her hands raised flat, her 10 fingers pointing upwards, looking down at him like a doctor before surgery. Obviously, the next step was the real time. Please recommend and vote for me, thank you all handsome guys and beautiful girls.